Actually, the matter is about the measures and how the subsidies are regulated. And the government is now reviewing all these regulations and make sure that the subsidies are in a position that can reflect positively to the economic status of the region and also to the support that was promised to the private sector. The government is buying electricity for almost more than 20 cents per kilowatt hour and selling in average for 3 cents, which is not collectible as general in all. So they want to have some certain stages that they re-regulate the subsidies. Of course, they'll have to start with the mega consuming partners and then going through the entire system. Cutting off power is not an approach that the government would like to take, but re-regulation, that means that these 20 cents per kilowatt hour will have to be recovered as it is in everywhere. But there's also a measure that everyone is looking at very carefully, whether this 20 cent that is spent on buying kilowatt hour, how visible it is and how transparent it is. So the revision is a comprehensive one. It includes the entire process of power generation, contracts, and obligations. And also, of course, it includes the consumers, starting from the mega consumers, which are the cement factories and steel factories. Well, the construction sector was predicted that will face this deadlock, and we have been discussing that since 2010, that the planning is very important in this. Studies and research are required, but of course, that was replied by equal opportunities to all, giving more areas for competency that made all these constructions coming to this, and all these money are going or spent in concretes and blocks. Regarding the financial sector and banking system, of course, banking system is essentially needed to be developed, but we need to be also careful that where KRG stands on this development, constitutionally, Kurdistan and KRG is not in a position legally to touch on this area. Maybe this is a gap left while negotiating the constitution, that the financial policies entirely and banking sector and everything on that area is exclusively the right of federal government to touch, and the KRG and even no other regions, if there will be any regions more regions in Iraq, will have any power to touch the financial sector. Even there is no, in the clause of the constitution, there is no any statement that talks about coordination or in agreement with the regions while dealing with that. And now you see that central bank declares that central banks of Kurdistan is not a part of them, and they are not a branch of Central Bank of Iraq. I think the current crisis will be a very strong and good lessons for the government. But if we go, for example, if the talk is about industry, we need to have a very comprehensive and detailed research about the defects in that sector. If we talk about agriculture, we need to review the entire legislations that manages agriculture, starting from the land and the rights of the farmers and the way that every single farmer are being dealt with. Also, we have a general legislations that needs to be passed by Parliament and or activated, which is protection for both for consumers and also for producers. Because the transition was not made in steps. The way that the government started teaming up with private sector was not passed through academic exercises and knowledges, and did not base on research. It was just a need that involved private sector in developing sectors and areas with the government, for example, electricity. We were desperate to go for any contract that would be offered to any contractor investing in power generation. At the time, it was needed, and the only one came in was the current investor. Now we talk between ourselves and we say that that contract was very generous or too generous. So transition was one of the issues. Lack of institutions and academic institutions that leads the private sector or represents them is also an issue. Also, there are some legislations and laws that needs to be more developed that can fit the expectations of public sector from the private sector and expectations of the beneficiaries and people from the private sector. And above all, transparency and anti-corruption tools that really are factors behind undeveloped private sector in Kurdistan.